Welcome to yet another edition of the show with no name for Friday the 13th, January 13th, 2012. I'm Bob Going with Gavin Murdoch and Jim Nicosia. I talked to Michael. I thought he would be coming as our special guest today, if nothing else, but I guess he's really busy with all that stuff he's doing now. He's looking for a seat.
Has he found it?
It appears to be. We don't know until the full board meets next week. On the critical issue of the day, which is the resolution setting the decorum rules for the Board of Supervisors.
Is that a little bit sad that you have to
do that thing? But, having attended that meeting, yeah, I guess you do. But part of it is, a new chairman, and he really... all these meetings, the person who chairs the meeting really needs to take control. And it's no... you can't blame the chairman for people behaving like imbeciles. But you can say, look, you at least got to assert your authority, say, you're out of order, be quiet, if we need the sergeant at arms to clear the room, we'll clear the room, But that's what you got to do.
Yeah.
And then if he says, I demand the right to speak, I appeal the ruling of the chair, the other members of the board say, yeah, let him speak, then you would suspend the rules, that's all.
I think I'm the only one that ever tried to clear the room. Or get the person excused from the room.
What was the circumstance?
I don't remember.
Oh no! You just share the story. I got to let you talk once in a while.
The ad hoc committee.
Yeah.
When Bill Wills was way out of line with his comments and commentary, and I told him to be quiet, and he wouldn't. And I called the.
You were the chairman.
I was the chairman. Right. I called the policeman who was sitting in the audience. I said, "Would you please escort him out?" He shut up like a clam.
Yeah. Well, that was the right thing to do. And more of these, there would be less.
And then I got the comment from the newspaper that I was acting like Judge Judy.
Well, so what? I like Judge Judy. One of my friends was on Judge Judy the other day.
Really?
Yeah. Lost, too. But the way the show works, this is interesting, is the show pays the judgment and the transportation expenses and all that stuff. So, it's pretty cool. Anyway,
you've been out of state.
Yeah, I've been busy since I last saw you guys.
Yes, you have.
And as Jim noted when he called me frantically on my cell phone, you're on C-SPAN. Watch what you say. Yes,
and pray tell, what were you doing in C-SPAN?
Well, I went up to New Hampshire. The object of the trip was I don't know if you'd call it a symposium, but it was like a soiree put together by National Review, the magazine, duplicating what they did 4 years ago in New Hampshire, and that is the night of the debate before the primary. They invite everybody up. They have room for 400, first come, first served. You have to have reservations. And the highlight of the evening is three guys being funny. Now, 4 years ago, the three guys included Mark Stein, who was one of the funniest men in America. Also, Rob Long from Cheers, who wrote for Cheers, who was extremely funny, and Jonah Goldberg from National Review, who has a very quick wit. So the three of them were tremendous. Now, Stein wasn't there this time, so James Lilacs took Stein's place, and he's great. He's been a columnist and does his own podcast, actually.
Really?
And actually, I think the three of them are doing the podcast.
Does their show have a name?
Yes. Yeah, you got to go to ricochet.com, and that's where they are. Anyway, Lilacs was good. Jonah was good, but not as funny as he was the last time. But you got to understand, his wife's sister died the day before, so I mean it was one of those things. So he wasn't feeling in an uproarious mood, but it was good. And I taped the whole thing. The last time they had their own cameras there, and they screwed up the sound for the first 10 minutes of it. So their video wasn't so hot. So I brought my own stuff this time, and I'm looking around waiting to be arrested
Right.
because I had.
New York Library was.
I mean, I was told in New York that I couldn't, at the New York Public Library, that I couldn't videotape Petrusha's talk down there. I said, I'm doing it. This is for his use. Well, we have our rules.
And it's a public library.
And it's a public library. It was crazy. It was insane. I got the audio down. Anyway. So I kind of surreptitiously pulled it out. They had a little session of Rich Lowry and a few other people from National Review did a more serious thing before that. And toward the end of that, I kind of took the camera out and waited to see if anybody would come over and slap me in handcuffs, and they didn't. So I managed to tape the whole thing, but because they weren't taping it themselves, it's very dark. They didn't, they didn't have the lighting was pretty crummy. Sound wasn't bad, and it's so long that I tried 3 times uploading it to YouTube, and it rejected it, and it really didn't say why. So I kind of gave up on that for a while. Then I thought maybe I better check with National Review before I publish it. Anyway, that was the purpose of the trip. But we went up early, and it was a gorgeous day Saturday in New Hampshire. It was sweater weather. I was wearing this sweater. Rick Santorum was wearing his sweater vest, and he pointed out to a reporter that somebody gave him a good line for his sweater vest. It demonstrates his support of the right to bear arms.
Very good.
So. I forget where we went, Politico or someplace keeps track of where all the candidates are every day. So Santorum was appearing at 3 places near Manchester, and they were kind of on the way, actually, to Manchester, which is where the National Review Party was.
Did you go to Manchester?
Yeah. That's right.
I scoured the audience whenever they flashed to see if you made it there.
Oh, I didn't go. I wasn't at the debate because they were showing the debate on the big screen at the National Review Party. So we watched the first hour or so of it there, and then came home. Anyway, so we catch Santorum. The first place is like the country deli, somebody's country deli. It was a lot like this place, actually. Yeah, it was a lot like Gwib. Not if it was any bigger, it wasn't much bigger. They had more. They had, kind of convenient food, chips and chip aisles and stuff like that. So maybe it was a little bigger. But they served the sandwiches, and that, needless to say, they served a lot of sandwiches and stuff until they finally just stopped letting people.
A lot of bologna.
A lot of bologna. Anyway. Beautiful day, and they quickly decided that there was no way that this is going to be large enough to accommodate the number of people who were there, because the cars were up and down the road, and it was probably 300 people there in a place that seats about 10 and accommodates maybe 40 elbow to elbow. So they moved it down the hill. It was a beautiful setting. They had a picnic table. A nice little New Hampshire pond behind it. They also had cameras set up because Carl Cameron was there to tape a segment for the Huckabee show with Santorum, overlooking the pond. So, and it's on a hillside, so that people could stand all the way up the hill, and everybody's got a good view and can hear pretty well. We get front row, essentially. And I got the camera, and my video of Santorum's talk there is just terrific. If I do say so myself, it's nearly flawless.
What was your impression of Santorum in person?
Very impressed with him in person. He's got a very quick mind. He's got a native. It's hard to even say it. He's got a humility that comes through, but not a humility that shows lack of confidence in himself, if you know what I mean. It's I was impressed by several things. One of which is he took every answer, no matter how, every question, no matter how snottily phrased, and treated it seriously. And he clearly is anchored in positions. In other words, he's thought about things. And when he's proposing solutions, it's things he's thought about. It wasn't just the usual, I'm going to give you the best value for your dollar. You know, it wasn't any of that stuff. It wasn't platitudes. It was, and he gave long answers, which is why I put the whole thing up on YouTube. It runs about an hour, because he would give long answers to serious questions and outlining how he got from here to there. I wish my battery hadn't gone dead by the time we got to the second stop, which was in that Red Barn in Hollis where Jim saw us on TV. And the C-SPAN RV was there. The election 2012. The line was too long. I didn't go in, but I figured other people should go in before I do. But he had some college kids there who were, kind of basically there to heckle him.
Yeah, they were.
And other commentators. This is why I don't trust commentators at all, because I was there. I know what I saw, and I know what I heard, and I know how it impressed me. And when you listen to some others, well, the problem he had was
It's selective.
Yeah. Now, one of the problems they had was he was engaging in Socratic debate with the college kids. Well, you know what? It was brilliant stuff. It was beautifully put. And as I said before, he clearly had thought about the things that he wanted to talk about, and he took you from point A to point Z, and showed how he got there, and why he believes what he believes. And I said, this is great.
He shut that one kid up real quick. The kid had no comeback when he got done talking. The kid had no comeback. He didn't have another question to try to stick him.
Well, the gay marriage folks were, of course, out in force and I thought he handled it diplomatically, in a dignified way. This is why I believe what I believe. Same with the abortion issue comes up, and he takes it from, hey, I was an agnostic. I was a kid. I didn't know anything. I'm dating my wife before we got married. Her father's a pediatrician, and he sat me down and started talking about, when human life begins and all that stuff. And he probably took 15 minutes on that answer, and close. it was. I was very, very impressed. So meanwhile, I didn't catch really much of the House thing because I'm outside chit-chatting with Jonah Goldberg and such, and Michael Barone, the statistician, was there. He kind of chatted with him for a little while. He's in the tank for Romney. Not impressed with. He's not impressed with Santorum at all. These people are just here because they're curious. Well, maybe. What was I going to say? Oh, so when Santorum arrives, you can see in my video, he's already hoarse because at the event I was at, there was no microphone, and he's talking loud enough so they can hear him on top of the hill, and he's starting to lose his voice, and the debate is in 2 hours or something, So he's so somebody says to him, can you move it outdoors so that everybody can see you? Because the crowd was just bursting at the seams in that barn. There were probably 200 people outside who couldn't get in, and it was a good-sized facility. And he says, "No, I'm sorry," and he explained why. And then he just hops up on a boulder a few feet away from him and says, I'm sorry you people can't all get in. He says, I'll take a few questions here. And he stayed outside for another 10 minutes taking questions outside for the benefit of the people who couldn't even get into the place. He didn't have to do that. And people would have understood if he didn't. And I think it seemed to be a compassionate bone in his body that was coming through, and that's the way he impresses me personally as a guy I'd like to have live next door, and also as somebody who's capable of doing it. So, despite all the things I said about him before before he tied in Iowa. I'm much more impressed with the guy than I was then.
They had the one percenters were there trying to heckle him.
Oh, there's all kind. One of the most bizarre things that showed up, arrived late, was some heckling group that was carrying pre-printed signs, take the money out of politics. And there's like a dozen of them, and they show up when he's actually already done and doing the interview with Carol Cameron. And we just laughed at them. I said, "You're at the wrong place. You're talking about this guy's got a budget of $36,000 for the state of New Hampshire. Come on." Be interesting to see how he does in South Carolina, because he actually he's spending a lot of money there, because he had all that money come in after Iowa, and he got a huge media buy in South Carolina. It's like 6 times normal. So
going into Carolina, is it Romney and Ron Paul is second?
In South Carolina?
Yeah, South Carolina.
No, Paul is running like 4th or 5th in South Carolina, actually. Yeah.
No, from going from New Hampshire down south.
Oh. Well, all this hoopla for the last 2 weeks, right? At this point, Romney has wrapped up 12 delegates. I think Paul has got 10. Santorum's got, I think, 10 or 9, and Gingrich 9 or 10. And when you add them all up, after all this, the inevitable Mitt Romney's got about a third of the delegates. I don't know. We'll see what happens. Now, the establishment is all falling into line at this point. Well, all the endorsements are coming. I don't know. Gingrich is mad.
How many
I'd say that.
delegates,
Gingrich is
delegates
mad.
from the Carolinas?
In South Carolina, I'm not sure. They got a better.
They got to be twice the number of New Hampshire.
Oh, much more than that. Yeah. Much more than that, because delegates are, among other things, apportioned on how the state did in the last presidential election. So that a state like New Hampshire or New York that went for the other guy is not going to have as many proportional delegates proportional to the population as South Carolina, that's voted Republican for the last 20 years, is going to. Or 30 or 40 or whatever it is.
I think it's present tense.
So anyway, my thought is it's not over till it's over, and if guys who really have a hankering to hang in, it could be very interesting. Remember that it was all over in 1976 when Reagan lost Iowa to Ford. He lost New Hampshire. He lost something else, and then they said, "That's it, hang it up, you're done."
These questions are already answered for them.
And he said, "No." He says, "I'm not quitting till the last vote is counted in wherever the convention was that year." And he stuck it out with hardly any money and just being Ronald Reagan. And all of a sudden, he started winning. And winning, and he won like 14 of the last 16 primaries, and came within a rotten deal in the state of Mississippi of being nominated for president over the incumbent president.
I might get it. I mean, I don't know. But that's
So, I think if the guys stay in this one, it's going to be very interesting. Now, Ron Paul's going to stay in because it's his whole life.
And he's getting more support than he got in the last election. It seems to be.
Well, one of the things is he's got a lot of Democrats voting for him.
Well,
that's the other thing that skewers these things. Iowa, New Hampshire, and South Carolina all allow cross
Cross voting, really?
Cross voting.
Yeah, so you can actually have the other party sabotage
Right.
a viable candidate by voting for somebody
Actually,
else.
the thing that most impressed me about Romney's win in New Hampshire was that he actually got 49% of the Republican vote. He got like 36% overall.
Right.
But Ron Paul's vote was overwhelmingly independents and Democrats who were voting in the primary.
Which sounds kind of...
Yeah, no, it's crazy. It should not be allowed. Period. Period.
If your party is choosing a candidate,
Right.
the people in that party should be the ones
And
who are
I have
choosing.
no idea why the parties would allow that to happen.
Must be some sort of historical precedent that something
It's a
occurred.
fairly recent development. I don't know. Maybe they want to encourage independents to move over to their party. Well, if it is, that's a stupid reason. Because
You can vote in it anyhow.
especially in a situation like this where the Democrats don't have a pony in the race, and can do all kinds of mischief. I mean, remember what the mischief Rush Limbaugh caused between Clinton and Obama last time? Getting going on the air every day and telling people to move to the Democratic Party, and then of course afterwards more people identify themselves as Democrats than ever before. Take out the Rush Limbaugh crossovers, and what do you got? So, anyway, it's very. I hope it remains interesting because I got to tell you, Romney does absolutely nothing for me. Nothing. It doesn't excite me. I think his mean streak in going after the other guys is not to his credit, and it's a sign of weakness on his part.
It's also detrimental to the party.
And it's hugely detrimental to the party. And whatever all the commentators are saying about Gingrich's current attack, if Gingrich is playing the kamikaze, I say Romney's got it coming. He's got it coming. And I think he has zero chance of being elected president because he's caused just so much ill will, and if it's going to be an election run on principle, why would you nominate the guy who has no principles? I don't know. But that's what keeps happening in the Republican Party, and that's one of the reasons I left.
And now so little is being debated regarding platform and specifics and programs and change that they all seem to have very little value as individuals.
Right.
Because nobody is out there. When I run against you, I should be able to say, this is what I'm going to do. You say what you're going to do, and then the people can choose who's got the better plan and the better ability to carry out that plan than somebody else.
And all of that is getting lost.
I don't think it's even in discussion.
Nobody's mentioning gasoline prices. Nobody's mentioning the stuff that really mattered to the folks. Anyway, so I'm not encouraged, but I like Santorum, and I still like Gingrich. I don't care. I don't care what they're saying about him.
I like Newt myself. I like what he's saying. Maybe not too happy about what he did when he was in there or the things that he's done, but I like what his plans are.
And he is good on his feet. My Lord, is he good on his feet?
The only thing I don't like, he's a wise ass.
Yeah. We should have him on the show. Maybe he should be a co-host.
Maybe that's the good part, is that he can think fast. He can come up with the smart remarks.
But that's the age we live in. That's what people notice and pick up on. Yet the true ability of a person is not built upon repartee, but rather on what your plan is and getting the people who are of the same opinion to work through and get these things accomplished. Because the decisions that a president makes is usually not off the top of his head.
It's what George Will said of Mitch Daniels, governor of Indiana. It's the charisma of competence that you really want to see. But I happen to think Gingrich has got a bit of both, and I think Santorum does too.
Well, I like them both. I a little favor to Gingrich than Santorum, but
I think what they ought to do is skip every other primary, have one in each primary.
And I think they ought to just scrap the debates. It's just recycling the manure
why
over and
why they would continue to subject themselves to having moderators for these debates who hate their guts and want to rip them to shreds. Why would they do that?
Try to trap them.
That's right. They want to show what you don't know rather than highlight what you do know and base your opinions on that.
How about the 15-minute contraception debate, for God's sakes? You know, and I gotta say, Romney handled that just right, and then Gingrich came in swinging good, and even Perry came in on that one. Was he still there? Yeah. I like Rick Perry, but he's second tier all the way here. I'm surprised he's still hanging in.
The party does not have an individual who stands head and shoulders above everybody else.
And that's been the way for a long time.
It has been, and that's unfortunate.
Yeah.
Because certainly,
But then it's been that way with the Democrats too. Really, when you get right down to it, I mean, who was Bill Clinton before? Who was Jimmy Carter before he ran for president? Nobody even knew who Jimmy Carter was, and very few people knew who Bill Clinton was before he ran for president.
Well, he did
Other than he'd given a 3-hour keynote address at a previous convention.
Supposedly he did a good job in Arkansas when he was down there.
Well, in the immortal words of H. Ross Perot, just because you've managed a local drugstore doesn't mean you're ready for to be CEO of Walmart.
It's unfortunate that they don't have somebody who can just step to the fore and coalesce the
Well, how do
things that need to be
you
done.
how do you even become a national figure? I mean, Reagan had the advantage of. Everybody knew him before he was in public office. He had 2 terms as governor of California, which were controversial, and he was astoundingly articulate. I mean, those combinations are hard to come by in the normal run. You know, Eisenhower, you know, he won the war.
I think Newt is just as articulate as Reagan was.
Yeah, and well, Newt's advantage is he is well known. He's been around long. I mean, it's not always to his advantage, but it wasn't always to Reagan's advantage to be well known. He was hated by a lot of people, and that's okay with me. I don't mind a guy who's hated. It means he's been taking positions.
Right, and everybody can't have a position everybody else agrees with all the time.
Yeah,
You're too much of a politician, not enough of a leader.
Right.
You need to be a leader.
Yep. And you need to believe in what you're saying. Too.
That's right.
Yeah.
We'll see.
We'll see. So that ate up half the show. Okay, and we'll be back.
On one of the other airways this morning, they had George Amador was on. He was on for half an hour, and a question came up early in the conversation about what movement has been made to deal with unfunded mandates.
Yeah.
And I like George. And he spent the next 20 minutes doing the Fred Astaire, talking about, yes, we need, but there is no specifics to it. Okay, do we need mandate relief? Absolutely. Which ones do we need, and how are we going to accomplish eliminating those mandates? Because there's so many things built into everything that it's not a simple thing to eliminate. What mandates are they going to take away from the city of Amsterdam that's going to allow us not to have to spend our own money? Then the next question is, once they do that, is the state going to have to spend money to make up for that because it's something we need?
Right.
Because everything that's a mandate does not necessarily mean something you don't need that's been put in there. Some mandates are things you actually have to have.
Right.
And simply changing the funding source through taxes of one shape or another doesn't mean we're going to be any better off.
We would probably be. I mean, for example, I mean, the biggest one is the Medicaid, obviously, over which the county has no control, and yet we have to keep kicking in out of the real property taxes. And the poorer an area is, the higher the Medicaid costs, which means the poorer it is, and it's a vicious cycle. So breaking that by making it statewide, yes, it's going to cost the same, might even cost more. It's not going to cost us more here, and you might break some of the cycle. But you're right. I know exactly what you're saying.
But he
so
did- he
so in
didn't-
half an hour, you can get too specific?
No, he didn't. And he took the position that yes, we need to have mandate relief. Yes, the 2% tax.
Well, that's
cap
a
was
that's
important.
one of those platitudes I'm talking about.
It is.
Everybody's for mandate relief.
All right. How are we going to
Just
do
doing
it?
it.
What's your plan is going to do it? And how many
devil's in the
mandates are
details.
there out there between the school districts? Do they have mandates? Yes.
Yeah, oh, usually.
Okay.
Sure.
What are we going to do about that? If we have to provide those, is the state going to do it? And the state does it again. Where's the funding for going to come through? What mandates are not necessary that the state needs to get rid of? But those things are not being looked at. They are not being addressed.
Right.
So it's
Let's just start with get rid of the ones you really, 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 really don't have to have this year.
okay.
Start there.
All right. Which ones do we have in the city that?
There are none in the city. There are no state.
mandates
There are
in
no
the city.
mandates
No
for
city
the city.
mandates. So everything we do is by choice here.
Yeah, other than the
mandate
state
is
laws
pensions.
regarding employee unions.
Pensions.
Well, but the pensions, how can you call the pensions a mandate? We choose to belong to the pension system, and it has its rules.
Well, yeah, but the rules.
So you
say
have to pay a percentage of the employee's income. Sometimes, for several years, they cut it out altogether because the fund was flush. But that's really not a
The
state
interest,
mandate.
the interest on the investments were high, so
right.
the cities didn't have to pay into the fund. But when the interest went down on the stocks and bonds,
The money had to be made up
the
someplace.
cities had to start paying what they didn't pay before. They never planned on it. And some of the cities like Amsterdam, they thought they were going to get a buy 1 year and make it up in several years after. But it wasn't several years after; it was the following year.
And
Because those things are compounded.
Yes.
And some of these other, it seems to me that if a locality has to rely on state money to fund its normal functions that are really local functions, like building roads, for example, then it should cease to exist as a municipality. And some years ago, when this CHIPS money came in, I forget what it stands for, but Highway Improvement, something or other.
Because if it is gonna happen.
It was meant to supplement a locality's road program so that the roads don't all deteriorate. You're not eating up your capital, and
Do it, trade in the money.
so yeah, it was a big shot in the arm. Well, it did not take many years before the entire road program consisted of CHIPS funds.
CHIPS money.
And now, if they ever pulled it away, we'd have no road program because there's no other way to fund it. Well, that allowed the city to get reckless in other areas and say, okay, so we don't need that money anymore. We'll use this money for something else. And instead of looking to the future, what happens if this gets pulled? They're left holding the bag. So, and I don't think there's any cure for that because the venality of man is going to continue to take the shortcuts, right, without looking to the future. So,
Well, they could've-
so ultimately, you got to say, don't do. You're not doing anybody any favors by doing this. All that urban renewal money that came into this town.
They could have done away with some of that CHIPS money by the state joining the interstate highway system, where the federal government would have taken over all the highways. And they didn't want to do that because they didn't want to lose that bureaucracy in Albany
Right.
with the Thruway Authority.
Right.
That could have been a government highway.
Right.
And they would have taken over the funding of it, the state or the federal DOC, whatever they call it. But they wouldn't do that. It was the same way with when Moynihan was the senator. They could have made the Thruway toll free. He was the deciding vote. He was the deciding vote to keep it a toll road.
And it was Yeah, I mean, the bonds were supposed to have been paid off like in 1990, I think.
Yeah, and that wasn't a big pitch in the sales of the throughway. The fact that yes,
Right.
we're going to pay now, but it's going to come a point. It's going to be a
And it was paid off in the 25 years.
And now all the money that comes is used to is thrown into the canal system. It's thrown into I-84, which is a free road. All these tolls we're paying are not going to the through. Of course, they're going to the toll collectors. You know.
just like the lottery.
Here's another thing I don't understand. You know, I go to New England frequently because my daughter's in Boston, and I have other relatives out there. But you know, as I'm driving out on the turnpike, the first 6 exits of the Mass Turnpike are free.
Free.
From our end, right? So, you know, that's a good deal. But you know, they got toll booths at all 6. And I'm thinking, why they've got a toll booth across the highway at Framingham, right? Just before you get into the inner belt going into Boston. So you have to stop there and give them $1 or whatever, or pay the ticket toll actually at that point. What? Why? Because somebody's got a brother-in-law who's got a job at each of these toll booths.
To take a ticket and say no pay.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what happens.
You get on, you get off, it's no pay. There is absolutely no reason for them not to have the general toll booth, not at the New York border, but way the heck out on the other side of Springfield.
Well, you start paying.
You're right. And it's the last Springfield exit from the side. You know, it's crazy, and I can't think of a logical reason that they would do that. I don't know.
Yeah, we noticed that last year we had to go up to Manchester for a bagpipe competition, and you got the ticket and got the end, and I said, no, you don't pay. Okay. Same thing come back. I thought maybe it's a free Saturday, maybe. You know, maybe Saturdays are free, but you know, it's a waste. Government waste? That's an oxymoron.
No, that would never happen. No, never happen.
Not in our lifetime.
So anyway,
At least it's free, as opposed to not being free like we go through
well,
here.
and of course it's super expensive as you get toward Boston because of the Big Dig money. You know, that's how they funded the Big Dig. So you get, you know, once you get past Framingham, you know, it's ridiculously. I mean, what it cost us to get from Scotia to the New York border was more than it cost to cover all of Massachusetts. You know, by long shot actually. Yeah. And then we get up in New Hampshire, all of a sudden we're on a toll roll up there. I said, oh my God, what are we going to do? You know, it was like $1 for like 30 miles or something. You know, I can handle that. Anyway, so, I don't know, anything happen on the local scene?
I haven't heard anything. I didn't get today's paper, so I had no idea what happened
Oh,
yesterday.
Pup Isabel passed away. I should
did he?
take a moment. Yes, yesterday actually. And there's a short blurb in the paper this morning. Now what a wonderful guy. You know, for years he was the chief greeter at Walmart. I think from the time they opened. It seems to me he was. And we always, you know, we're going to Mr. Isabel's store, you know, because he'd stop and he'd talk. And in the general scheme of Walmart philosophy, he was the perfect guy for that job. And it involved very little work. It was basically just being friendly and knowing people in town. And who knew more people than he did, for heaven's sakes? You know,
Knew everybody.
You know,
He knew everybody.
Knew everybody. One of my favorite virtues is cheerfulness. And he had it in spades. You know, not too many people do when you get right down to it. But he was just a cheerful guy. He was
Guy you want to be around.
guy you wanted to be around, and he'd always, you know, he'd always gear his conversation to what he knew interested you. Like when I'd walk in, he'd talk about the Red Sox game last night or something like that. Sometimes we'd talk in Walmart for half an hour, you know. And I can see, you know, his at least two of his boys, if not all of them, are sports nuts. I mean, they know everything there is to know about every sport. Benji and Alex, and I can see where they got it from because the old man just ate that stuff up. Just a wonderful guy, you know, and you know. He used to go to the barber shop, but it was like he probably got 2 haircuts for every one of mine. But it was like he was almost always in there when I went to Dan Purfo's barber shop. He was almost always there. Yeah.
Used to sneak out of the firehouse to go to Dan's to get a haircut.
Is that right? On company time?
On company time.
You had your beeper on you, though, right?
Well, we could see the front of the firehouse.
What's that?
If the truck came out of the firehouse, we knew we had a call.
Were you on Bunn Street? Or where?
No, Brookside.
Oh, on Brookside. Oh, wow.
I can remember Dan, he started out on Market Street, in the 3 barber shops there. Next to
You're
the
thinking of
Cook
Dan
Nose
Rico.
Yes.
I'm talking about Dan Purfo.
Yeah.
Okay, all right.
He started out on the one right next to Catugno's Tailoring there.
Right.
And
Bye, guys.
And I can remember as a little kid, my grandfather would take me down there because we were up on Grant. And he'd come down and get a haircut, and he'd put the board there to sit on because you're too short, you know. And he's the first man I ever saw that had a tattoo.
Right, that's right.
Tattoo on his arm.
It was an anchor, wasn't it?
Yeah.
It was from when he was in the Navy.
Right. And I asked my grandfather, I said, what happened to him? And he said, well, he was in the Navy, and lots of times the sailors would go out and they'd go out and get a tattoo. Okay. Yeah, there's a hula dancer in the middle of it.
Yeah, you remember that Irving Berlin song? A sailor's not a sailor till he's had his first tattoo?
Yeah, you know, and I can remember that. And then he had his own shop down there by the clock tower. Later on, he got a place by himself.
Yes, he was down there. And in between, he was up on... He was on Glen Avenue for a little while.
Yes.
Yeah, not for very long.
No, but yeah, so that's like, he was my barber.
Yeah, yeah. Well, yeah, he was my barber for about 40 years, something like that. Yeah. And you know what? When I first went to him, he was the youngest union barber in the city of Amsterdam. And when he retired, he still was. Dan had an interesting naval career. I mean, I think he didn't get off the ship for like 3 years or something like that. But he was telling me about an incident that I never read about in the history books. They were sent up to the Aleutian Islands because the Japanese had invaded a couple of the Aleutian Islands, and then we had kicked them back at some point. But this is fairly early in the war, like 42 or early 43, I think he told me. And so they had, been up there protecting the Aleutians, and on their way back to wherever they were going, they sent them to Japan. It was just 1 or 2 boats, I guess. And it was like a daring raid. They came by some of the Japanese islands and shelled them, and then took off.
Like a drive-by shooting.
Drive-by shooting, just to let them know that it was going to be possible. And I never read about that anywhere, but it's a good story.
Speaking of
it should be in my book.
It should be. And speaking of your book, I heard on the radio today that you're going to be speaking Sunday.
January 22nd, not this Sunday. January 22nd.
Yeah, along with our city historian.
Yeah, a frequent guest on the program. Now, I think we got like 10 minutes apiece, so between the two of us, we're going to cover World War II, Amsterdam, at home and abroad in 20 minutes. Plus, they'll give us a few minutes to take questions.
What show is that?
This is going to be for the Amsterdam Reads program, and it's going to be at the Century Club, I think at 2 o'clock on the 22nd. And they've invited all the World War II veterans, and they gave written invitations to as many as they could think of. And so they're going to seat them around and have them discuss their own experiences.
What time is it going to be?
2 o'clock, I think.
2 o'clock?
Yeah. Yeah. And Ann Piconi's going to bring some artifacts from the museum.
Right.
And we haven't picked those out yet, but I got some ideas. So it should be good. I've been reading the book. I got it. We had a meeting about this a couple of days ago at the library, and then I went downstairs and took Unbroken out, Laura Hillenbrand. it says, I think incongruously after reading the book, author of Seabiscuit on the front. Yeah, okay, she's author. Let me tell you, every book she ever writes from now on is going to say author of Unbroken, because what a tremendous book. And I tell you, I felt very small. I'm almost done with it. Very small reading that book because, for a variety of reasons. One, as a human being, and secondly, as an author. Because she tells the story so well and in such beautiful detail, and gets right to the heart of it, and it's just a great story all the way around. Yeah, it's a true story of a guy who was destined to be the first guy to break the 4-minute mile. Went to the Olympics in Germany in 1936.
It's about Bannister?
No, it's not about no. This guy didn't break the 4. This is 20 years before Bannister.
Right. He was attempting to break the
Right. He was already. He did just before he got in the plane in Hawaii. They were sent out on a search mission for another plane that had gone down. He was running in the sand and did a mile in 4 minutes and 12 seconds, running in the sand. And that was just horsing around. Anyway, the plane goes down. They have this epic sea voyage. Doing everything to stay alive. There were only 3 of them escaped the plane. One dies on the way. I'm not giving away too much because that's all in the prologue. Because it starts while they're in the boat, and then get captured. After going 2,000 miles across the open Pacific, they finally land on a Japanese-held island, and then just.
Then it gets worse.
Every bad thing you ever heard about a Japanese prisoner of war experience happens to this guy, and they try to break him. And from the title, you can see he's unbroken. But meanwhile, nobody at home knows he's alive, and after a year, he's declared dead, and they send the life insurance policy. And it really goes along the lines of a lot of the stories in my book. And one of the things was how many. I mean, I noted it in my chapter or in my book Honor Roll, which was also going to be included in the new book, and that is in 1943, just an incredible amount of planes went down due to mechanical failure or pilot failure or whatever. Far more. There was 15 times as many casualties from non-combat reasons as respect to the planes, and you could just see, this one was that they sent them out and was pasted together with bubble gum, and they're not on a combat mission; they're on the rescue mission, search and rescue mission. Nearly all of which were failures. And then the Japanese were just obsessive about. They didn't like the idea of prisoners of war to begin with, because in their system, you fight to the death, and if you're taken prisoner, it's dishonor. Sure. So they figure Americans taken prisoner, or British or Dutch or whatever, they're just the lowest form of life. So they didn't
want to maintain them.
They had already annihilated whole prisoner of war camps. Just killed everybody, and they had a written rule that no POWs were to be rescued, and that if the Americans were coming, they were all to be killed. And they had actually set the date of August 22nd to kill every POW that was still in captivity.
Really?
Of August 22nd, 45. And of course the war ends exactly a week earlier. And it was still touch and go for a bunch of them, because they didn't come under control of the Allies until a week or more later, most of them. But an example of that is a guy from Amsterdam, can't remember his name. I'll tell it. I'll remember it by next week. POW in the Philippines from the time of the Bataan Death March, okay? And the Americans land in late '44, and they're coming close to liberating these POW camps in the Philippines. So the Japanese are so obsessed with not allowing that to happen that they take cargo ships, which they desperately need to bring, because half their navy has already been sunk, or half their ships have already been sunk, cargo ships and whatever. And they take these valuable cargo ships and fill them with POWs to send them either to the mainland or to Formosa, to Taiwan. And this guy from Amsterdam is on a boat, one of these cargo ships, and description is just horrible. I mean, there were people dying on it from suffocation. I mean, that's how bad it was. Nobody could lie down. You had to, stand up the whole time or take turns sitting down, and that was it. Anyway, there's the number of POWs aboard is a little unsure. It was either 1776 or 1783, which I thought was interesting because it's the first and last years of the American Revolution, right? Actually, it was 1775 to 1783. So it's a cargo ship, and an American submarine spots it and sinks it. And there were 8 POW survivors, not including the guy from Amsterdam. And those 8 somehow managed to get a life raft and rowed 400 miles to China or some crazy thing like that.
Chilling.
Yeah.
So there are plenty of local stories that go along with this stuff.
Yeah. How's your book coming?
How is it coming? I keep finding more stuff to write, but especially around Christmas time, I spent a lot of time on it, and really started putting it together and editing stuff in and out and moving stuff around, just to see what I've really got in book form at this point, and did quite a bit of writing. It'll be done this year, but I think sooner rather than later. But it's just I keep a to-do list of things I haven't written yet, and there's there's some are short stuff, some are longer. But for every one I erase, I keep adding 2 more. So.
Whenever on one of the other radio stations, AMSAM,
The other one besides us, you mean? Besides the show with no name network?
That's right.
TSWNN.com?
Yes. Jim Labatt's going to be doing a book signing up in Nicosia this weekend.
Yes, he is.
Another local novelist.
That's right. That's right, and it's a great book, and I promised him a review, and I also promised to bring him on the show, and I haven't done either yet. So that's me. It's a wonderful book. What's it called? My Teacher's Password, I believe. I got it here. Wait a minute. I think I have it right here.
I haven't heard that one. What's My Teacher's Password?
Yes, here it is. My Teacher's Password by Jim Labatt. And Jim is a creative writing instructor, right? And this is about a student in a creative writing class. And the teacher is a female creative writing instructor. And as you can tell from the title, he manages to grab the teacher's password and then goes through the through the conscience thing. Should I take a look or shouldn't I take a look? And and all that. So it's amusing. It's a little guilt-trippy thing, but he has these little twists and turns that.
Amsterdam in this one?
What's that?
Is Amsterdam in this one?
Yes. As a matter of fact, he indirectly mentions me. Which is as close as I've gotten to being in one of his books, notwithstanding his books are usually about every kid in our neighborhood. Right? So, I mean, I haven't even been fictionalized, but he does make a reference to my Requiem YouTube, which was where I took Maria Riccio Bryce's Requiem from her Amsterdam oratorio and added the photographs of all the Amsterdam guys killed in World War II. You haven't seen that?
I haven't seen it.
Oh, it's a knockout. It's just go to YouTube and Argoing, and you'll find it.
Argoing?
Yeah, just
Oh,
so you'll
Argoing.
Argoing, RGOING.
I thought he was asking like an Argonaut.
If you search on that, you'll find all my stuff, and I don't have that much that you won't be able to find it. Or you go Argoing Requiem, and you'll find it immediately. It's powerful. I mean, it's really powerful. It has nothing to do with me. It has everything to do with Mary's score and her son singing it, Peter. It's really, really good. Anyway, he mentions that at one point. I'm reading this. I start out on chapter 1, believe it or not, and I'm thinking, what the heck is he doing here? This does not sound like Jim Labatt's usual succinct method of writing. And you get toward the end of the first chapter, and again, I don't think I'm giving away too much plot here, and you realize that what you're reading is a creative writing assignment, and what basically the assignment was write 1,500 words a day. And if you keep writing, it doesn't matter what you're writing about, but as you're writing, sooner or later, the things will start to gel, and you'll actually start a story. And this is really good when I got to the end of the first chapter, because what I'm reading is what is happening in the guy's head, and it's just such a creative use of writing that I said this. Yeah,
He ought to be a writing teacher.
He ought to be a writing teacher. Yeah.
But yeah,
I mean, I took a creative writing class in high school, and it was basically, I got the impression, of course, it was to teach you how to write like everybody else.
Who taught that?
Sister Maria Christina. You remember Sister Maria Christina?
No.
She was there while you were there, although I think she left after my senior year.
Yeah, I don't remember.
Anyway, interestingly enough, the female teacher in this book.
Is a former nun?
No, she's not listed as a former nun, but her initials are MC. So I'm reading a lot more into this than the average reader is. Yeah, so I'm thinking, so Jim had this.
Yeah.
Jim had this thing for our creative writing teacher. Actually, I'm not sure Jim was in that class, because Jim was a quiet guy, and unlike me and a few other people, he didn't make a lot of noise in class. So he may very well have been in that class with me. I got kicked out of that. Oops. All right. So it's. Well, you're always looking for, with Jim's book, you're always looking for the hidden meaning of the stuff. Yeah. Or what caused him. Anyway, it's a wonderful read, as all his books are. He really is a fine writer, and again, I'm jealous. Yeah, good for him. Oh, you know what? I think I'm going to cut this into 2-hour spots. Let me see, or am I reading this wrong? Is it 58 or 50?
It's at 10 after 11.
Yeah, okay. So we're going to cut off this hour and do another right after it. So I'm Bob Going with Gavin Murdoch and Jim Nicosia, and this has been the first hour of the January 13th, Friday the 13th edition of The Show with No Name.